Flathmann Kuttler. We're very excited about it. Evelyn has a lot of history in the north part of Treasure Island. So Evelyn, why don't we just start with where you were born and how you came to be living on Treasure Island?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1942, and I just am thrilled my parents brought me to the shadows of John's Pass Bridge when I was 2. In 1944 we came. But my grandparents had already been there since 1941, and they had purchased plantation cottages and the restaurant in front of it, which I think must have been called Plantation Inn. So that's where I came from. And thank goodness I didn't stay in Brooklyn.
So when you came to Treasure Island, you moved into their cottages, your family?
Yes, at first we had to be in a cottage, and then my dad was so handy with, he was an engineer, an air conditioning engineer from New York, and he worked for Kraus Air Conditioning in Florida while he was helping my grandparents run plantation cottages because they were getting older. So he had to build his own house and run plantation and work. So he built our home, which later got condemned by the new John's Pass Bridge. And then he also built another cottage for my grandparents, and then he refurbished all of these little fishing shacks. Plantation was just a little group of 7 fishing shacks. Very rustic, but he fixed them all up. But we had no air conditioning, no television, and no phones. And everybody loved it.
And did they have the restaurant at that time?
Yeah, at first, when we first came down, the restaurant was operational, I think, until my grandfather died, and he died when I was 5, so that would have been 1947. Oh yeah, I've got lots of pictures of the cottages, and it was idyllic. I mean, nestled in the sea oats and the sand, and we had a huge beach out in front until the Army Corps of Engineers did widening or deepening of the channel, and it eroded 900 feet of my parents' beach, and we almost fell in the water till we went to Congress and got a revetment bill to put in a revetment, and those revetments are still there holding the land. And now the John's Pass Bridge sits down on what was my bedroom and living room, and the little stone house I used to climb up like a little crab. It was so much fun.
So Evelyn, so your parents, did they both work at the cottages and the restaurant?
Yes, they both worked in the cottages. Okay. I think my grandfather and my grandmother mostly did the restaurant, and I have so little understanding of the restaurant, but I found all the records of what was in the restaurant when they purchased it, and we'll have to look at that.
And do your records say who they purchased it from?
Yes, Wilkerson, I believe, was the name, so I'd like to go back and do some more research on that.
Well, we hope you do that. Let us know what you find.
And it just so happens that in the law firm that I now own was a lady that was 92 years old that worked for our law firm. She was a witness on the deed into my grandparents because she worked for us till she was 92. And I just discovered it yesterday when I looked through these records.
Wow.
So.
And where did you go to school at the time?
I went to Sunny Hours Beach School because there were no public schools on the islands except for except for Paso Grill was alive then, Paso Grill School. But my parents, I guess, thought that was too far to go, so they sent me to Sunny Hours Beach School, which was paradise. Oh my goodness. I could talk hours about Sunny Hours Beach School.
Where was it?
It was right today where the Goonie Golf, Puttar Golf is. It was on the Gulf side, and the Puttar Golf place was just a thicket. That whole golf, miniature golf, was all palm fronds, and they cut a little circle out, and Jim Dandy Ranch brought horses out in these big buggies, and we learned to ride horses around and around in a circle in that thicket. And Mr. and Mrs. Kaufold were a German couple, and they ran the school, and he taught woodworking, and we learned pram sailing out on the beach, and it was paradise. It was, and he had every kind of a plane. He had like a little triplane and an old Model A and a little cars. We could get in them. They were real, and we would play and have make believe. And oh my goodness, So,
Now, Sunny Hours, wasn't it a little bit more like a
yeah.
kindergarten or pre-K, right?
I
More
know,
than
I went
elementary,
there kindergarten and first grade
Okay.
and second grade, and then Gulf Beaches Elementary on St. Pete Beach opened when I was in third grade. So,
Okay. And what, do you know what grade Sunny Hours went up to?
I think probably maybe third, fourth, or fifth. I
Okay.
really don't know how far.
And you brought your bathing suit to school, didn't you?
Oh,
You had a lot of swimming and
I
stuff,
took
right?
my bathing suit with me. Now that was more when I got into public school. And I put it in my book bag, and I was the last kid off at Johns Pass Bridge. And when everybody was off the bus, I'd go back in the back seat and tear my clothes off, put the bathing suit on, shove all my clothes and shoes in the bag. And by the time I got off and the bus driver stopped near Johns Pass, I was off that bus, the last kid, and run to the house, throw the bag in the house, and jump in the pass.
Really?
Because it was hot when you didn't have air conditioning. It was fabulous.
So the bus picked you up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it went all the way, all the beaches, I guess, right?
Right. It
And
was fabulous.
Did it stop before Paso Grove because Paso Grove had their own little school down there?
I bet it probably did. Yeah. It was such an incredible, easy life. I think I probably had the best childhood anybody could have from any place in the world. The sand, the sea, the sun. Oh my goodness. It was idyllic.
It was paradise, wasn't it? So tell us how the cottages in order, let's say from either north to south or
Well, we'll
south
start
to
north.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
know,
Okay.
and I got this from the records. My dad wrote down all the homeowners that were going to have the revetment in front of their homes. It started with Canny, K-A-N-N-E. She owned a little cat. That was not commercial. That was a private home.
Okay.
And then after Canny came the Coconut Palms, and then us, Plantation, and then the Stone House, and then Longhurst, which I think became Hess. And then there were two other owners that I didn't recognize. Then came Van Dyke Colony, Lee's Cottages, and then Morgan Cottages. And right by Morgan Cottages, between Morgan Cottages and the one north of that, Mr. Pointer, that was the editor of the St. Pete Times, he owned a house out there. And I used to go down and sit on his lap with his German housekeeper, and she would pull all my teeth. My mom was too scared to pull my teeth out. And she got the job of pulling my teeth because my mother was too scared. So I got to sit on Mr. Pointer's knee when I was little.
And you think that was next to Morgan? Pretty
Yeah.
close to, okay. And a big home, small home, more cottage?
You know, as a little kid, it was
probably seemed big.
pretty big, but I'm sure not nearly as big as, I think Sid Rice's home is there now, all in front of there.
And tell us about the Rock House. Who owned the Rock House?
That was Anna Kravitsky, Krivitski or Y, and she was a Russian immigrant and was a lady lawyer. So I never dreamed that when I was a little kid I'd end up being a lady lawyer like her, but she didn't like me climbing on her house. So I would sneak it when she wasn't home. I'd climb up the side of her house like a crab. Oh, God.
And was she friendly or not too
Oh,
friendly?
she could be really, really a little bitey with her tongue. So I imagine she made a good lawyer.
And then, do you know if she probably bought the house, the Rock House? She didn't build the Rock House probably, right? That was already there?
That's an interesting question. It was always there from the time I ever came, and it looks so old. I would think it was there.
And was she there from the very
The
first you
whole
remember?
time
Okay.
that we were there till we got condemned.
Okay. And why don't we go ahead and talk about that? So tell us all about how that came about with condemning and which properties were involved.
Yeah, I went through, oh my goodness, I have stacks of, we knew it was coming for several years, so that depressed the property values tremendously because nobody was putting money into their properties. So it was very depressing, kind of. So we had to all hire attorneys and fight for a little bit more money for our places, which we did, but I went back and looked at the piddling little amount. I mean, $70,000, I think, is what my family sold, what was left.
Plantation cottages.
And now those things are worth hundreds and hundreds of thousands, if not
Million.
millions of dollars on the water. But,
And then they took, so the properties that were involved with the bridge, that was the cane, coconut palms,
right,
plantation cottages.
right. Van Dyke,
Oh, but not the Rock House.
yeah, they were involved.
But the Rock House is still there.
Well, that's interesting.
But Van Dyke was involved in that as well.
I would imagine a piece of the front, because they're still there, so I guess it was mainly through plantation cottages probably,
Okay.
and not the Rock House, come to think of it, since they're still
Right,
there.
right.
Yeah.
And when that all happened, where did your family go?
Well, my mom and dad moved to Isle of Palms, and they
Okay.
lived there until my dad passed away on Isle of Palms. And then I moved my mother next to me on Park Street. So we always, oh, and when I was little, my parents would take me in front of the house I ended up living in for 40 years on Park Street, which faces Boca Ciega Bay, and my dad would scallop with us, and he would put my mom and I with a bucket around our waist with a rope, and in 15-20 minutes the scallops were just running in the trout grass, and you just took a little net and you scooped them up and put them in the bucket, and then my dad would ferry around between the two of us, and we'd have a bowl of, I mean, a big tin with ice in it, and we'd have, in an hour, you'd have
Wow.
the whole bucket full of scallops.
Wow.
It was unbelievable.
So you all owned another little piece of land that didn't go with the
Right,
parcel that was
it's
condemned.
still there.
So tell us about
It's
that
still,
one.
that little piece is what you see now, a little triangle open, and that we sold to Ed, to Sid and Agnes Rice, and I think they sold that to the city, and I don't know who owns that now, whether the city owns it or.
And I
so-
think previously you had told me that there was an A&W stand on
Yes,
North End. Now,
right.
this is a surprise to
Right,
everybody.
it was, I mean, it was the size of a large closet.
Really?
And it was old as the hills, and it had one of these wooden flaps that come down on the front, and they would lift it up, and they had big freezers in there, and that's where they kept all the mugs that would get frozen cold. And of course, with no air conditioning around, and these hot, steamy, hot nights, our guests from the cottages would go over, and they had old stools that would you'd sit right there, and it was right on the road. And that, oh, and we could have root beer floats, and it was the big deal to do, you know, to take
Yeah.
the guests. And that was originally, the Church by the Sea had a laundry right next to that, and that's where the Church by the Sea started.
Well, Church by the Sea started a little further in, didn't it? We
That
have an
was-
address. What
that
was
was
that?
the,
Somewhere on Treasure Island
yeah,
on
it
the
was,
other
Fisherman's
side.
Hall, the Fisherman's
Fisherman's-
Fisherman's Hall.
Right. Do you know where that
Yeah,
was?
that Lagoon Lane.
Okay.
So you think it was that? There was a little restaurant or some sundry thing was right next to Fisherman's, to where the Church of the Sea first started. You think that might have been it?
I'm
Because in
not
the
sure.
photo, you can see something next to it.
I'd love to see that. Then my
Well, we have
dad,
that. We'll show
when
you.
they moved that to Madeira Beach, then my dad put the wiring in Church by the Sea in Madeira Beach. And I just met, it was somebody's father put the plumbing in there, and we had such a laugh at one of our reunions. Oh, it was fun.
At what, the Bogey reunion?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I can't remember who
And
it
you
was.
graduated in 1960, right?
1960, right?
Now, you were Miss Treasure Island. Let's talk about that.
Well, I can't remember much about it. I don't remember who the competition was, so I don't think there were many of us. But apparently it was an island thing, because my pictures show us, a whole group of us. And we were all girlfriends from Bogey. Mostly all of us went to Bogey.
Okay.
So it was fun. But my favorite memories are the boating and the islands. When they were pumping in the islands, they hadn't even put the cement around yet, and there were just piles of the gray muck coming up. And my dad would go fishing, and I didn't like to fish that much, so he'd drop me off on these mucky islands, and I'd wander around, and oh, there was millions of little starfish and blowfish and stingrays, and I'd take them one at a time and put them back in the water and I'd be crying. It was, oh.
And that was probably the Isle of
Capri, Isle of Palms, Paradise Island, all the St. Pete Beach. You know, we would fish. He would fish all in there, and he would catch so much fish from John's Pass. I mean, redfish, snook. I mean, we're talking huge. So much you couldn't carry them, and he would put them on a leader, tie them on my waist, and we would swim. He would swim them back. I would swim them back, and he'd walk in the water to make sure the sharks didn't get me. And in the dead of winter, he'd get me up with these great big boots, and we'd walk out on the jetties that were in front of Plantation, and the stone crabs would be hugging the pilings, and he'd reach down and rip one off, and he would never take two, you know. And
one leg,
yeah,
one claw.
And then late at night, my mom and he would have a little skiff, a little tiny boat, and you'd tie it to the footings of John's Pass Bridge, and on an outgoing tide he'd hang a lantern on the bow, and we'd lay on our bellies on the front of the boat, and there were millions of shrimp. I mean, millions of shrimp would come under the pass, and we'd just take the net, and there again he'd have a bucket in the bottom of the boat, and we'd fill that up. In 20 minutes you'd have a huge bucket of fish, shrimp.
Wow. Now you thought maybe you all went over to Eleanor Island, the small little island that was off?
And that's where we had my best memory of my dad and I was getting angel wings. And these seemed small to me. When I was a little kid, I thought they were much bigger, but I may have bigger ones at home. And the island would be all muck, and we'd hang the boat up nearby and find little holes, and the animal would come out of this probably another 8 inches up out of here, and you would know it's there because it would have its little nose up like that. So my job was to grab that nose before it got down in the shell and hold on to it, and then my dad would take a trowel and go around my hand, and then up would come this magnificent shell, and then we'd take it home and boil the animal out and bleach them, and I just think they're one of the most magnificent shells you could ever have. So we had such fabulous memories doing that. I took my grandkids back recently there, and there's little shrimp that are growing in the trout grass there.
Really?
So that's encouraging. But
now you did ballet at one time. What period of time was that?
that was from the time I was 8 till I was 18. I was going to be a ballerina. But then I decided I wanted to have a family, and I didn't know how you could do that and be on the stage. So.
And where did you take the lessons?
Fred Astaire Dance Studio. And that was near Gulf Beaches Elementary on St. Pete Beach. And I used to walk down a little dirt road. And I had a very strict French teacher, and he really was good. So I really got pretty good at it, and I really had hoped to be the prima ballerina assoluta. But
you remember the French teacher's name?
yes, Pasquale.
Okay.
And a lovely older couple ran the Fred Astaire studio. Oh, I can't believe I can't remember their name. It was idyllic. You didn't have, nobody worried about bothering you. I mean, I walked by myself or other little girlfriends, and barefooted. I hated shoes. And did the same thing from Plantation. I used to walk in the sunset time and go down to Municipal Beach, and they had a bar that you could hang on, and I did all kinds of ballet all by myself, just having a wonderful time, and walk back, and nobody ever bothered you. Never locked the door at Plantation. So.
Evelyn, do you remember the Municipal Beach area before the Municipal Beach was there?
Mm-hmm.
When there was like a house, did you know the Withrow family?
I did.
Yeah, because they lived
Mickey Withrow?
Well, Jackie Withrow.
Withrow.
But he talks about they lived in that house right there, and they would like shoot.
Is he still there?
No. Well, Municipal Beach is there.
Oh,
this
no,
was where
okay,
Municipal Beach is. Yeah.
Okay.
He's still around.
Is he still around?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's good.
We palled around Withrow. I remember him. Amazing.
Yeah, they talked about shooting guns from the house, like across Gulf Boulevard. I guess there was
I know
across the street.
when we first came, I remember my dad kept one of those kind of rakes that have the hard, with all the prongs coming, and I mean, many times he would jam a rattler. I mean, there were a lot of rattlesnakes Whew, I did not enjoy rattlesnakes.
No, no.
Oh, and one time I got stung with a scorpion, a mother scorpion, and 5 babies were in my shoe in the garage.
Oh.
And I mean, I
Oh,
was,
family.
oh my goodness,
Gosh.
I was on a couch with fever, and I was really sick from that for days and days and days.
Wow. So your dad, he became involved in the fire department? didn't
Yes, he was a volunteer fireman, and he was on the sewer district, and that was when they put sewers out for the first time and switched the whole island from septic tanks to sewers. So I've got all the paperwork when he was on that district. It was interesting. Oh, and I found an article in 1950, I think. They had some kind of referendum, and there were 250 people that voted from Paso Grill to Indian Rocks. Wow. 250, that means though that's all
Residents.
the property owners. You had to be a ad valorem taxpayer to vote on this referendum, and I found an article about that's
Wow.
pretty amazing. 250 people.
And you remember where the firehouse was there on, where your
Yes, on Treasure, on, yeah. It was Sunshine Beach at the time,
dad- Right.
and a little tiny bungalow. Could hardly, oh, I remember. I was 5, I guess, and we were having a hurricane, and it was bad. I was very excited because school was closed, and in this big red fire engine, my dad and some other firemen took my mom and I, wind blowing, and there was no cover on those fire engines. It was out in the open, so they took us to high ground on 70th Street and 9th Avenue to a little German couple that couldn't speak much English. So my mom, being very German, must have known them. So we stayed, mother and I stayed there a couple of days, and the dog bit me.
Oh.
Isn't it crazy?
That area is still where they send people for high ground. That's
Yeah.
where, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, my
Yeah.
God. That whole Azaleaville area,
But
that's,
that was
high
so
ground over
exciting. There was an alarm that went off when there was a need for the firemen, and my dad would keep his boots and his suit on top of the boots, and whatever he was doing, you'd hear that alarm in Sunshine Beach. And I mean, all of the guys came, and I found a list of who was on it.
there. Neat.
Drake and my dad, and now I'd have to pick it up and find out. And Appleton, Mr. Appleton from across the street. They were quite a breed. So it was a sunny day, and all of a sudden everything got gray, and the roar of waves started coming down Sunshine Lane. And I was in cottage number 3, which was my grandma and grandpa's cottage, and it was right on Sunshine Lane. And my mother picked up her purse and picked me up under her arm, and we looked out the window, and you could see rollers coming down Sunshine Lane. I mean, we're looking like 2 or 3 feet high, and it just inundated the whole island. And as quickly as it came, everything receded and was calm, and the mess we had, it was like red tide. Every fish, every shell, it stunk for weeks, and we had to rake all that stuff up, and it was some experience.
What year do you think that was?
My guess would be, I might have been, I think my grandparents were still alive, so it'd be between 44 and 45 would be my guess. But there's a record of that, and I've seen it written about somewhere.
Wow.
But that was, my mother was so scared. And my dad must have been working downtown, because I don't remember him being around. And an ice truck used to come by. And in plantation cottages, we didn't have refrigerators. We had ice boxes. And the ice truck would come with a big pick, and they'd put it right into the ice box of each cottage.
Sure.
I mean, that just seems so ancient
Doesn't
to me.
it? It really does.
And
doesn't
then
it?
us, the little kids, we would run after the ice truck, and they'd throw us little chips of ice. That was so much fun.
Now, how about the trailer park? That was there when you were growing up,
Yeah,
right?
I was not allowed to go down near there because there were a lot of drunken fishermen
There you
at
go.
John's Pass. But John's Pass was verboten, except they allowed me to go to Barbara's mother's sundry store, and now that was Marie Powell, and what was her name then?
Oh, yeah.
It was Marie Powell. Never dreaming I would know her later when she and I would serve on Treasure Island Yacht and Tennis Club board.
Okay.
And she used to feed me cherry cokes and chocolate cokes from her sundry store.
So you would go in there?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that I was only allowed to go there. I couldn't, unless my dad was with me, because it was pretty rough around the bridge. Lots of fishermen, and they sometimes were not sober.
Most of the time. Did Agnes own that at that point?
Yeah, Agnes and Charlie Rice, to me, I recall, owned almost everything around the bridge there. You know, Kingfish and Paula, the daughter, she and I used to do acrobatics on the dock to entertain the guests that were eating dinner.
Really?
I remember that. Oh, one time the Miss Judy went out and with the anchor hooked a whale shark and got yanked around the Gulf for a while.
That sounds
That's my
familiar,
understanding,
yeah.
and there was an article in the paper about that.
Yeah, that's been identified and drug the thing all over the
Right,
place.
right. And the captain of that boat was the father of this young boy that I loved to go dancing with on Friday night. And Skip Payne was the boy's name, and his father, I think, was the skipper of the boat when this happened. And that brings me to the Women's Club of Treasure Island, and I think a lot of the women's clubs joined together, and we would have dances every Friday night at the community center. And there'd be no alcohol and no smoking allowed inside. And we had more fun with that. And they
And
had,
that's when you were a teenager?
yep,
Okay.
every Friday night to keep the kids off, you know, giving them something clean and fun to do. And the women from the Women's Club were the chaperones. And they would bus us from Indian Rocks to Madeira Beach to Treasure Island to St. Pete Beach, and each of these places had a rec hall. And I know when I was 16, my dad bought a boat kit because I was starting to get boy crazy, and he wanted to keep me in the house.
I took accordion, but anyway, go ahead.
And
Tie more buckets around the
oh
waist.
my gosh, we had more fun. He kept me in that garage. There were 1,000 screws, and it was a beautiful, all wood and all the ribs, and oh, it was awesome. When we got done, then I used it with my boyfriends to ski.
Yes, eh?
But at least he delayed it a year.
Well, I think you're looking at those pictures. I think your father was a smart man, trying to keep you occupied.
Yeah, and we saw your Miss Treasure Island and your ballet pictures.
Oh, we had
You were
so
beautiful.
much fun. I tell you, I don't know how I'm alive because we would ski through those little bridges on Isle of Capri.
Yeah.
And you know,
Oh
you
my
just,
God.
I mean, but we had little, 14-foot John boats with 25 Evinrudes on the back. I mean, they weren't hugely big, but it was, oh my goodness. And one time in the Gulf, we were out in the Gulf, not far from John's Pass, and I skied right over a manta ray the size of the top of a car. I was so scared. It was just, get me back home. It was unbelievable.
How about the Johns Pass, let's see, Wayne Atkins Bait and Tackle
yes,
Shop? How
I
about
knew,
that?
yes. Oh, I knew them very well. And they had, Punky was the son, Hurlbut was the last name.
Oh, can you say it
was-
again?
All right, maybe the Hurlbut family, Hurlbut, owned the porpoise tank
Okay.
on Madeira
On
Beach.
Madeira Beach,
And I
right.
used to go over and feed the porpoises, and they had a huge Jewfish, which is now they call it something else.
Giant grouper or something.
Yeah.
Goliath group.
Goliath grouper, right? It's the politically correct term for the fish. And the mother of that family had a monkey in her house. That was so
Really?
fascinating. And my mother would go, and she just couldn't stand that stinky monkey.
Oh, monkey. There's nothing stinky. So that was the Hurlburt family.
Hurlbut family.
And
Yeah.
where did they live?
They were lived on the premises.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, and they had this porpoise, and they,
I remember the porpoise.
and
I went there.
the tourists would pay to see porpoise shows.
I saw it. I went there.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know where they live. Downstairs, maybe.
Yeah.
Wasn't the porpoise show upstairs?
And you could peek through downstairs through a little porthole. You could go down below and look at them. Oh, it was unbelievable.
Now
that
it's Delicious Pizza.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh my
So that was
goodness.
on the Madeira Beach side.
Oh wow.
All right, so back to the Wayne Atkins bait and tackle, so they're, with that family, you knew
Yeah,
their
I
children?
remember. Now, is that Atkinson related to Leon?
Atkins.
Oh, Atkins, okay.
So Wayne Atkins.
I remember the name, but I
Bait
knew
and
the
Tackle
Hurlbutts
Shop.
better
Okay.
because they were nearby. And Beggs, the Beggs family, owned the little tackle shop too on a dock there.
B-E-G-S?
Beggs, Beggs.
And that was a tackle shop?
Yeah, a bait shop. And they had also apartments and so on.
Wasn't he a boat captain also?
It could have
Beggs?
been, yeah. Artis Beggs was the wife, and Don Beggs was the husband, and Buddy Beggs was the son, and the daughter of that family is still very active at Church by the Sea,
Oh.
Kathy Beggs.
Really?
She's a lovely lady. And my best girlfriend growing up was Ellen Schuster from Schuster's Cottages and Hotel Ellen, and that was right on Madeira Beach. So they were to the north side of the bridge as we were to the south side. Both our
Okay.
parents owned cottages, and we were only children. And my mom was taking me across John's Pass one time to see her, and we were going, and the bridge started opening. And there was a little bridge tender house there, and my mom didn't hear the bell and didn't hear the gate coming down. And we had already stepped on the bridge, and it was starting to go like this. And I remember looking down and seeing the water swirl, and she grabbed me by the arm and yanked me back to the solid part of the bridge. And that bridge tender screamed at her, and oh, he was so upset with her. So that was a near link.
So the Lockhart who's still around.
Yeah,
wa-
Gary.
Okay, so was it his family that
Yeah,
had the
his
shop?
mother and dad.
Okay.
Mhm.
So his
And
parents.
that was a
had it.
fun place to go. They had such fabulous shells. And my grandmother and I and my mother would lay on our bellies on a towel in front of plantation cottages and with little jars and tweezers and pick little tiny shells, little cup shells. I mean, infinitesimally small. And then my grandmother would dye them, and then we did shell art
Wow.
with the cement, that kind of, what was that cement called? It smelled really good.
It did?
You get high doing it. Oh gosh.
Oh,
And,
Testers glue,
yeah, oh, it was a kind
airplane glue.
of like airplane glue, yeah, very clear. And we you get little plastic circles and earring things and made necklaces and bracelets, and it was fun for an art project.
And you, I think you had told me previously that you did the probate for the Passive Girl Museum.
Yes, the little museum there. It would be so wonderful if we could find something to be a museum like that
Wouldn't it?
here on Treasure Island.
I think that's a great setup they have there.
It's wonderful.
So that family, when someone in the family died, they just,
She
to
wanted,
the city, did
yeah.
they give it? How did that
Yeah,
come
actually
about?
she donated to the county. I think that the trust and the will put it to the county. The county somehow is involved, I think. And we work.
So the gentleman that you're married to now, Andrew Hines, was head of Florida Power.
Right,
And the Florida Power had a Sunset Beach House.
right.
Did he talk any about that?
He loved going there with his wife and his children. They would go Sunday afternoons and enjoy it. And the one comment he said is the family, I mean, the members fought so hard to keep it that apparently there was a move to, I guess, get rid of it, but then I heard that it had burned down.
I don't know. I think we kind of heard, but we don't know for sure. I thought maybe he might have known, exactly what happened.
Right. Come on, lay down.
But we have a great photo of it. It was quite a building. And the employees bought shares.
Right.
Did he talk about that at all? Do you remember that?
No, they still have a Florida Power Club that is relatively active, but they're all
Yeah,
I'm just
remember-
curious, where'd you go to law school?
Stetson, right here at Stetson.
Okay.
I was one of the first women to go, and that was a challenge, but it was 124 men and another lady and I. That was
Wow.
1964. Oh my. So I've been practicing 47 years,
And you're still practicing?
and I'm still practicing, and I love it, and it's a wonderful profession for women. And I just put my paralegal through law school on my own nickel
Thanks.
so
Yeah.
that my firm can go forward with the next time. We're 101 years old, this firm. So it's an honor.
And
So-
what's the name of the firm?
Harris, Barrett, Mann, and Dew. It's the oldest firm in St. Pete. When we were a little fishing village, Mr. Dew and Mr. Barrett and Mr. Harris started it. And there's history on Treasure Island because Tom Harris lived on Treasure Island and was very involved with the owner of Careless Navigator, whose name was, do you all remember? Alva Barkey. Right, right. So, lots of history.
Lots of history. So Evelyn, we sure appreciate you coming today and sharing all these tales with us. Do you have anything else?
Just what a privilege it was to have nature around you 24 hours a day. The sunsets were magnificent. The learning all the nature and Shell Island was our favorite haunt to go for visiting with the boats. So just the joy of living on the water. Somebody just gave me a sign that says, "Heaven feels a little closer by the water."
We hope you enjoyed the history and the tales of Treasure Island. There's more to come. We have over 57 hours of the tales of Treasure Island. So as soon as we can get them to you, we will. Thanks for watching Tales of Treasure Island.